the session started. So hello and good evening. Welcome back to part 2 of our sessions. Claire Adams, my name, Deputy Head of Ringwood School. I'm just going to introduce some other colleagues to you, my panel. So if I start with Tom.
Yep, good evening. Lovely to see so many of you again. My name is Tom Cooper. I'm Head of Year 9.
Thank you, Tom. And Louise?
Good evening. Hello again. Louise Warnell, Assistant Head for Teaching and Learning.
Thanks, Louise. And Michelle?
Hello, good to see the parents and the students that are online. My name is Michelle Back-Garrett and I'm in charge of the curriculum.
And Rachel?
Good evening, my name is Rachel Heaver-Webb and I'm Assistant Head Teacher with responsibility for exams and assessment.
And finally, hello from Leanne.
Hello, good evening. If you don't know, I'm Head Teacher and really good to see so many people here this evening.
So we're going to start off by just showing you a little bit more about where the work is again, a reminder of how that's going to look for you in Teams, and give you a little bit of information about the setup and the system. So I'm just going to start by sharing the screen and showing you what that will look like. So first of all, our school website, just as a reminder, you can find everything that you need to in terms of the work set for the students in the academic section and the student remote learning. We're trying to keep it all in one place, the same place for everything, and it's down here on the student remote learning page. And my apologies, I forgot to remind you that if you do want to ask any questions during the session tonight, then please do post those into the chat, and my colleagues will be answering those as we go through, and any that we miss we will just try and pick up at the end. So here you'll find the work to complete summer term 2, and that's the same for all of the year groups, so you can find the year 9 work here, and that will open up as a PDF, which hopefully will enable you to see it on your phone or tablet, so that you can keep up to speed with what's being asked of your children. So all of the subjects are here. Again, they're just hyperlinked so they can be clicked, and slightly less detailed this time than last time, just so that we can keep it short and sweet on here and really push all of the information through Teams, which I will show you in a moment. So that's where you can go, the one-stop shop for all of the information that the students have got. And just as a reminder, students can also find the New Learning Zone and their email and their home access portal all up here, so they can get that nice and swiftly and easily as well if they need it. So if I just stop sharing that part of the screen, I'm just going to put on for you the Teams page. So we've been asking teachers this half term to try and make sure that they post the work really clearly in the team posting page, and also within the assignment. Anything that they do within the post page, and I'll show you that on this class of mine here, they're going to be putting on and making it as obvious as possible for your student, your child, to be able to see the work that's been set. We've been encouraging staff to make sure that it's very clearly labelled so they can see which work it is and for which week, and then I can very easily go and view the assignment so that I can see that as the students will see it, and then complete the task set there. If there's any links or anything like that, they will be within here. There will also be any information within the posts so that the students can really clearly see that. And that will be the first place that your child needs to visit every day to find out which of their subjects has posted and what it is that they're being asked to do. We're just in the process at the moment of trialling a weekly report to come out to parents about assignments, so you would get an update on that, which I hope will just keep you a little bit more informed about A, what your children are being asked to do, and B, how they're getting on with actually completing it, because the completion is hard for some of them because perhaps they just don't upload it, they don't submit it, or they do it on paper and then are not sure what to do with it. So that will just help you have those conversations with your child about, well, have you done this, what does it look like, and how have you completed it, and have you submitted it, and is it marked? So that's where they'll be able to see those. This little activity bell up here is where the assignments will ping into. So they'll be able to see that there. If they downloaded the Teams app, which I thoroughly recommend that they do, they'll see that on their phone or their iPad as well. If they've got a tablet, they're going to see that there as well. Now, there's been some conversations about online video lessons, and some staff are doing this and some staff are not doing it because of the fact that they're home educating as well at the moment, doing other things. But where possible, colleagues are going to be scheduling their calls into the calendar. So your child should be able to have a look and they'll see a calendar and it'll have all the bits and bobs for their week on. And here is a video lesson that's been set up by Mrs. Harris, one of the science teachers for a Year 8 class. And I can see there by clicking on it in the calendar, I'm able to just go and join the meeting by clicking the link. And I can see the week to view across my page so that I can see exactly what it is that I've got to be doing that week. This is obviously pulling in from my timetable, so your child will probably look a little bit more sparse than mine does. So that will be where they find that as well. So most important thing for them to see is in the Teams. Their assignments will be posted and they'll be able to see that. Some of them might link them to files, which is great, and the assignments will tell them if it's in there, and they'll be able to have a look in the class materials. But that is the first place for them to visit to try and make sure that they have got everything that they need to up to date. So I hope that that's given you a little bit of clarity. I know we're all learning with Teams as we go. Any problems, then please do ask them to contact their classroom teacher or their tutor. They need to, and we can make sure that we can give them support. I attend school on a Friday, and I'm really happy to meet any student who needs a bit of guidance in school for 10 minutes just to go through it if you've got problems with your IT kit as well. So hopefully that's just given you a little bit of an overview of where the work is and what that's looking like. And I'm going to pass over to Louise for her to give us a bit of an update on the teaching and learning element.
Thank you, Claire. So first of all, massive congratulations to our students for sustaining the work like they have so far over the last 7 weeks. And also a big thank you to you parents. I know that Mr. Cooper will talk a little bit more about some feedback that we've had from some of the children, but you really do make a massive difference to your children and to the work that they're able to do in terms of submitting their work and staying on top of their work. I know it's not always easy as a parent myself. Sometimes you can feel like you're constantly nagging and you're checking, but that is the right thing to be doing because that is offering them the support that they need. So thank you very much for doing that and in advance for the next 7 weeks, 6 weeks to go. We think the students are adapting really well in terms of their independence. We talked to you before about Brain, Book, Buddy and Boss. We would encourage the students to carry on working as independently as possible. And just a little bit more to tell you about the midterm plans this time round. Like Claire says, they are slightly less than before, but what we have added at the top of the plan, you'll see some review activities. So we don't want the children to lose sight of what they did last half term. So there's a list of what they will have learnt last half term. And then there's also a suggestion of review activities. So if you wanted to, thanks Claire, if you wanted to, I'll wait till one of those comes up. If you wanted to check and test and check in with your child what they've been learning for their different subjects. So here's the design and technology pathway. This top one says they've been analysing last half term of existing products and presentation of work clearly and logically. You might want to then get them to review something related to the existing products. You might ask them questions about that. And then if you scroll, Claire, thank you, at the bottom, we have asked all subjects to provide additional learning because we know that one size doesn't fit all and that our students work at different rates. So if you find that your child has finished early and they say they've got nothing to do, it's up to you and obviously up to them whether you would like to just encourage them perhaps to supplement their work, because there are suggestions within those plans and there will be probably within the lessons each week of what they could do. So they are the new plans. So just checking my notes. The thing we've noticed, and particularly when we see our students on site working, is that sometimes they can rush through the work, like if they've got PowerPoint and just press return and go through it quite quickly to move on to the assignment, which might be a quiz or some other related learning activity. So just to encourage the students and to make sure that they actually do the work and read the work first before they then submit their assignment, because there will be probably, if there's a PowerPoint there, that will be useful and important information for them for their learning. We are also encouraging the students, like Claire says, to check their posts every morning where the assignments will be, because there might be further instructions in there for them to go onto perhaps a different website, or just the instructions of what they need to do, and to just encourage the students, please, to read the instructions carefully before they press on and move to the assignment. Obviously, having a schedule is really important, and we will still encourage the students to follow their usual timetable as much as possible. We want them to be able to manage their workload, so we are very mindful of the fact the work that we set needs to be done within that 50-minute slot. And again, if it's too much, or there's a kind of problem with the work, then we encourage the students to put a comment in posts or to email their teacher about that, to help them manage the workload. And finally, just two things that we asked of you last time that we do ask again, please, because we think it's making a big difference. The first one is checking in with your child and reminding them, please check in with them that they're meeting their deadlines and they're completing their assignments. That's really, really, really important, so we keep them engaged. And the second thing is, we did mention last time that perhaps you could question your child about their learning, like I just showed you on the review activities that are there, and encourage them by asking them questions, probing them a little bit on the work that they've done, getting them to repeat it back to you, or to go back and revisit their learning, because we know that research shows that it's more likely to go into their long-term memory if they do go back and revisit their work. So big thank you. We know we've got 6 weeks to go, and we want to try and keep everybody as motivated and as engaged as possible. I know Mr. Cooper will talk a little bit more about the kind of routines and keeping the students going. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lou. That's much appreciated. And I'm going to hand over now to Rachel, who is going to give us a little bit of an update with regards to progress checks and the like.
Thank you, Claire. So you will know from your calendar way back in September, what a world away that seems now, that you would have, if things had remained normal, got a progress check for your child for the sort of second half of the academic year. Obviously, we've had to change those plans. It's not really appropriate now, given that we're all working remotely and your children are working from home, for us to be able to comment on attainment. But we would obviously like to give you some feedback on the most important thing really that's happening at the moment, which is that the amount of engagement that your son or your daughter is having with their teachers and with their work. So at the end of this term, you will get sent home via InTouch, just as normal, a sort of alternative progress check. So we think at the moment it will be called something like Summer 2020 Subject Engagement Check. And when you get it, you'll see that for each of your son or your daughter's subjects, their teacher will be giving you some feedback on how well your child has engaged for this whole period. So right from March the 20th, when we shut normal school, to almost the end of term. You will get all this information in a letter, of course, but it will give you one of 4 pieces of information. So it will either tell you that your teacher is saying, that their teacher, sorry, is saying that your child has engaged well over the course of these 5 months or so, that they've engaged with the work in a way that is appropriate and useful, or it may tell you that they have engaged a bit more sporadically, or it may tell you that they haven't engaged. And so that will be the 4 different bits of information that you will receive. The reason that we're doing this is really threefold. It's partly so that for those children, and we know that there are so many of our students who are working so hard across the board and doing so much to keep up with what's happening and to keep themselves on track. So first of all, it's for to give you that information so that we can celebrate, you can celebrate, and Mr. Cooper can celebrate as well as the head of year, those children who have done a brilliant job under the hardest of circumstances to engage in their work. So that's the first reason we would like to give you that feedback, as we normally would be able to celebrate with progress checks. Also, it is of course to give you feedback if there is an issue that's been ongoing, that that in a particular subject perhaps, or a little bit more than that, your child has found it really hard to engage with the work that's been set. And obviously it's really important that we share that with you, and you know that, and that's really clear at the end of this year, particularly because it's important about what happens when we move into year 10 and what your son or your daughter might need to focus on then. And that's the third reason, really. It's so that we've got some information to pass on to next year's teachers, so that when we begin in year 10, that the teachers will know whether or not that student did engage in the work that went on across this period of time. So it's for all of those reasons that we are going to do that and to share this information with you. And as I said, it will come to you on the Tuesday of the final week of term. So I think that's the 16th of July. And that then gives you a few days to get in touch if that raises a question, or if you have any feedback that you would like to share with us. And just finally then, please don't worry if between now and the end of term there is a sudden brief issue that means that your child can't engage for a couple of days, they're not very well, or you have an IT issue at home, all those sorts of things. So if it's just something very temporary, please don't worry about that impacting, because this is a piece of feedback that's about the whole of these 5 months, not at the odd bit of bump in the road that everybody has at some point. If it's a longer term issue, of course, we may already know, you may already have shared that with us, but if something does happen between now and July that causes an issue about why your child perhaps is able to engage less than they have been, then please do make sure, as you would do, that you share that with us so we're aware of full context. Okay, thank you very much. That's it from me.
Thanks very much, Rachel. Much appreciated. And I'm going to hand over to Michelle now, who's going to talk a little bit about options. She's joining us tonight to make contact. She's aware that she's sent lots of communication out, but just a chance for her to say a few words about options. Thanks, Michelle.
Match the name of the letter to the face. That's my job there. There's two things really. There's the options process, and just to flag, firstly, thank you so much for all of your help and support in getting the year 9s to do the paperwork, come to all the nights, getting all the information, really considered the approach to what subjects they want to do for next year. And I was really impressed by the maturity of the students themselves, the one-to-ones that I've had with students that I haven't had much to do with while they've been at Ringwood School, but they've been so mature and really taking the process seriously, and that's come from you guys at home, so thank you for that. So you should have by now received a letter via InTouch just confirming what I have got on my master spreadsheet of which subjects your sons and daughters are doing next year, or in September, should I say. That letter has prompted a few discussions. I think lockdown has prompted a few discussions between our students and their parents to actually consider what do they really enjoy doing, where's their passion lie. I've had a few parents contact me to say, actually, I can really see they've got this massive passion for computer science, and we didn't really let him choose it, but I would like to make that change now. So if there is anything where you think, actually, we need to have a rethink about the subjects that have been selected already, then please do get in contact with me just by my email. If I can move things around, I will. Obviously, some subjects, the classes are very full. If I can't make it happen, then I would always put the student on a waiting list. And if anything else happens and moves around, then I'd get them into the subject that they would like. If, for example, they start in September, if it all goes back to normal by September and we're all in September, and the student starts a subject and suddenly thinks, hang on a second, this isn't quite what I wanted to do. What we generally say is for 2 weeks, we stay with the subjects that they've selected, just to get that embedded time in. And then if at the end of those 2 weeks they're still thinking, no, this isn't right, I want to switch, then we open up the door again and we do the final little bits of adjustment. So that's that on the options. The other thing is to talk about is the dropping that's happened. Now, obviously, this isn't normal in year 9. At this stage of the year, normally, everyone would be in school. They would still be carrying on with their subjects that were on their timetable. And so it's not normal for students to suddenly stop doing geography because they're not doing it next year. But we listened to you, and we listened to the feedback that it was harder to motivate students to do things like geography or history if they've dropped them for next year. And so to help with that motivation, especially during lockdown when they're trying to work at home, we thought, okay, this makes sense. For those subjects where they're definitely not doing it next year, yes, we'll take it off of their Microsoft Teams. What we haven't done is ask students to suddenly pick up their brand new subjects. If they were trying to pick up something brand new like health and social care remotely by themselves, it could be quite complex, it could be quite demotivating, and they wouldn't normally pick it up at this point. So we haven't asked them to replace it necessarily. There's a few subjects like photography, because they already do art and they've dropped art necessarily for next year. People like Mr. Fielder might get in contact with you to say, have you thought about doing this little bit of work, just to again try and engage and infuse. But it won't be a replacement of new subjects for the dropped old ones. Instead, it will be detailed work in the subjects that they're carrying on. If there's any further questions or feedback on that, I'm on my emails all the time. You just need to get in contact and I can see what I can do.
That's lovely. Thanks very much, Michelle. Much appreciated. And just before I hand over to Tom, I'm just going to ask Mrs. Simmons if she would just perhaps comment on the question that came through about uniform, if you wouldn't mind, Liliane. Thank you.
Absolutely, really, really good question, and quite a multifaceted question, actually. So I'll try and answer it, but there, as you can imagine, there are about 100 different scenarios within all of this. So first of all, if we think about Plan A, this cohort has known right from the time they've been in Year 7 that when they enter Key Stage 4, they will move into the new uniform. And many, many, many Year 9 students have already made that move into the new uniform. And had we not had a pandemic and everything had been completely normal, that would be just absolutely what would be happening, and we would be expecting to see absolutely everybody in the grey uniform ready for their whole of their Key Stage 4. And ideally, we would like that to happen. However, I recognise that there might be a difficulty in you getting hold of a new uniform, and supply is potentially the real issue here. And that's because Stevenson's have only just started to go back to work. So the shop is not open. I think the shop is opening in a couple of weeks' time. It's not actually open yet, but the managers have gone back in. And so we've had quite a few conversations about what that's going to look like. Certainly, you can order things online from Stevenson's. That's not a problem at all. And you can send them to school, and it's free delivery then. You can come and pick them up from school. That's not a problem whatsoever. We've got somebody at reception, we can organise that for you. That's no problem whatsoever. But actually getting to the shop, if you need to have a fitting or something like that, that's going to be a bit more complex. And I know Stevenson's, like most school uniform outfitters, are going to concentrate on the Year 6s to Year 7s because they have no uniform for their secondary school. So it might be difficult to get hold of uniform, and we will keep monitoring the situation as the weeks go by, and as we get a bit more knowledge and as Stevenson's understand what it looks like when they open, we'll be able to feed that information to you. If you have not been able to get new uniform, don't worry, we will live with it, and we'll accept that we've been in a very, very, very difficult and different situation, and we'll move that forward. It might be that we are still working quite remotely in September as well. So I'm also conscious of you going out and buying a new uniform, only then to not actually properly get back in until November. I'm just making this up. This is not necessarily what will happen, but it could be that you're not back in until November, in which time you've grown 4 more inches and the whole thing's been quite difficult. So I recognise that the supply issues, we've also got a huge supply issue obviously with the black uniform, so it's not even a case of moving to the grey uniform, but we've got very, very little stock left of the black uniform. So it's difficult to get you new school uniform. And I say that to you as well as a mother of a Year 9 son who has grown an enormous amount whilst we've all been at home, and I'm just not quite sure how I'm going to get him into any new school uniform at all. So I do recognise the challenges, but bear with us. Stevenson's will have a much better idea about supply as the weeks go on, and I will be communicating you with you about that. But we absolutely do understand. We also understand that people's circumstances may have changed, and there has always been a fund in order to be able to support, and we absolutely recognise the need to do that. But our biggest challenge might actually just be the supply of uniform itself. But we will be understanding in everything we do, because it's been just such an unusual time, hasn't it? So I hope that answers your question. More on that to come.
Thanks, Leanne. Thank you very much for being able to answer that for us. And I'm going to hand over to the main event, that of course is Mr. Tom Cooper. Over to you, Tom.
Good evening. It's so nice to see so many of you show up again. It's really nice. Just to point out that we are human. The other heads of year and I have a bit of a competition to see who gets the most people showing up to their Zoom meeting. So I'm really thrilled to see so many of you this evening. I'm really grateful for that. I just want to start by echoing what the other members of staff have said in that a huge well done, because it really has not been easy over these past 12, 13 weeks, I think it is now. And Year 9 have really risen to it. They've really risen to it on the whole. So a huge pat on the back to them for not only their schoolwork, but what they've been doing extracurricular as well. And I've loved the fact that so many of you have sent in pictures or stories of things that your children have been doing, new skills that they've learnt, new opportunities that they've taken to maybe raise money for a cause. And through you sending those in, it's absolutely lovely for me, because then I can share them with the rest of the year group. Every Wednesday I do sort of a bulletin of what has been going on in the week, and some pointers of what students can do on our Year 9 team. So where Claire Adams showed earlier, all the classes, there's also, they'll find they've got one for their tutor group specifically, and they've also got one for the year group. And the year group is where I put my video message and share the good things that they're doing, and where other members of staff put assemblies that can be viewed by the students as well. So please do encourage them to check that and have a watch of those videos or notices that are put up there. It's really important. The second thing I wanted to talk about was in relation to tutors, and the fact that we are still here to help and support you. And some tutors have been using their tutor group teams to try and do live catch-ups. Now, these haven't been received with much enthusiasm so far, and I'm putting that down to the fact that I think the students maybe don't know that it's happening. And I think with motivation being one of the hardest things at the moment, just to check in with their tutors to say hello can be really boosting for the day. So please do have a look at your child's tutor group team and nudge them in the right direction and get them to go along and be sociable for 5-10 minutes. The tutors are really informal. They'll play a game, and it's just an opportunity to open up some dialogue and have a bit of conversation. So do encourage that if your child's tutor is able to do so. Equally, speaking on a video on a computer like this is really tricky for some members of staff, because it's a new skill that a lot of us have had to master. And when you enter a class and there are, say, 15 or 20 students there, if they've all got their cameras turned off, then it can be a little bit daunting for the teachers. Now, we've set that as an automatic thing so that when students come onto Teams, their cameras are blacked out. However, if they do want to take the plunge and turn their camera on and try a bit more, be a bit sociable, it's really motivating and boosting for the members of staff who are doing that. So please do encourage them to do that, and it might be a good way to tell them to get out of bed a bit earlier and do their hair or get out of pajamas and things like that. In these opportunities that tutors have to speak to the children, please do encourage your child to ask for help if they want it. The tutors are going to be endeavouring to get in contact over the phone or via Teams over the coming 6 weeks before the end of the term. So we should hopefully be able to get through to you just to have a chat as opposed to an email a couple of times over the next 6 weeks. The reason for that, and the reason that that's beneficial as opposed to an email, is just to have that dialogue and get things going. And it's not because we're trying to check up or be nasty, it's really just to try and have that correspondence. So if you have any worries or any concerns, then please do ask your tutor and they will be able to help out with that. We're not trying to be nasty, we're just trying to help in every single way, shape or form that we can. So do talk to us about that. The next thing I want to talk about is a generic thing with regards to well-being and the whole being healthy. Now, the government have released some guidance recently looking specifically at what we are eating, because there's an awful lot of encouragement for getting outside and doing exercise, and we've been told to do that from the day go. However, eating isn't something that they've commented on that much. Now, I know that in the glorious bout of weather over the Maybank holiday, my swim shorts were substantially tighter than they were this time last year. And I think it's because the temptation to get up and pop to the fridge multiple times during the day is really high. So please do watch, please do take an active watch of what you're consuming, because if you're filled up with sugar, you're not going to be able to concentrate as well on your schoolwork. So maybe save that for the weekend. If possible. Ms. Vaughan now also spoke about routine and the importance for that, and we do encourage that and try to stick to your timetable as much as you possibly can. But off the back of that and looking after your mental health, it's really important that you switch off at the weekends. So please do the 50 minutes per subject, absolutely, but remember, stop at the end of those 50 minutes. Don't feel obliged to go on more than that. Just tell your tutor or your teacher if you haven't managed to finish it. And when it gets to the weekend, have a break. Try and stick to that routine. Equally, we are very fortunate with the weather recently. So please do, as part of your routine, if it's glorious and you want to take a longer lunch break than normal, and add those 20 minutes onto the end of the day instead, and spend some more time outside, then please do that. That's not a problem at all. You've got to make the most of the little things that we're getting at the moment. So do watch out for that. But my key message is really do speak to us teachers. And the motivation that you give as parents and carers at home is the most important thing. When I spoke to a focus group of students a couple of weeks back, I said, what's the thing that gets you up and working in the morning? What does it for you? And they said, it's the fact that we're told to do it. And at school, our teachers tell us to do it, so we do it. And at home, if our parents tell us to do it, then we have to do it. So please do keep pushing that as much as you possibly can at home, and do contact your tutor or myself if there is ever anything that we can do to help.
Thank you, Tom. That's amazing. Thank you for your input. Just adding to that with regards to the government document that Tom is referring to, that was actually published on the 21st of April, also talks about mental health specifically for parents as well as for young people, that actually, you know, as adults, we need to look after our own mental health to ensure that we can provide support and encouragement for the young people that we work with or have in our homes. So if you are interested in having a look at that, there's quite a few links on there which just help you to consider the impact of the situation that we find ourselves in onto our young people, the fact that there is a lack of socialisation for them at the moment, which can be really hard. I know we're all missing that as well, not having the children and our colleagues with us. We're social animals too, and so it's quite a difficult time for us. So we do understand what the children are going through, but the document very much talks about having that listening ear for your children, just to be hearing what they're saying, what their concerns are. Obviously the media can be quite intrusive into our lives and intense, and so just making sure that we're aware of what we're hearing in the bombardment that we're getting from that, and putting that into perspective and considering the discussion and dialogue that you can have around it to ensure that we're all comfortable with the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. And I'm sure for many of you it's been a roller coaster at home of good days and not so good days, and it's just about making sure that you reach out if you need any help. And we were delighted at the beginning of this year to have launched the Think Ninja app with the young people, which is a free wellbeing and mental health app that all of the children at Ringwood School can access. They can download it for free, and they can register with the school postcode, and that will give them the chance to just touch base, first of all, with a computer algorithm, and then if the algorithm deems it to be necessary to escalate that, the children can get escalated to an actual human who will be able to make contact and support where necessary at this time. And they are particularly focused on the feelings of young people through the pandemic. So please do have a look at that. And as we said last time, do remember our safeguarding pages on our school website. We've got some wellbeing pages there. Also, we've got signposts there to the food bank. So if you know families who perhaps need some help or support, then we can guide people to that as well through those information pages. And as we've said before, you know, where we're all under the same roof, and there are pressures from the fact that some families aren't working and that circumstances have changed, that the safeguarding information is there. If anybody needs to make contact or support others to make contact with us, then we will happily signpost for you. Children who have sometimes got support in school, maybe through a teaching assistant, please do look out for the calls that are coming from them. They've all been assigned one-to-one sessions with our young people, so that's a great opportunity to get ahead with your work. The TAs are doing an amazing job looking at all of the class teams to see what works those students need to have done, and learning that for themselves, so that when they make contact with our key children, then they are able to really guide them and support them with that, and a friendly face and a nice voice, and somebody to speak to for an hour across the week. So do please encourage them, and if you need any support, then do get in contact with us, and we will obviously look to put whatever support we can in place to keep encouraging for the last 6 weeks remaining now until we break for the summer term. So thank you everybody for your questions, and I hope that you found them useful. Thank you for your positive feedback, lovely supportive donations for uniform. That's really kind. We really are a community school, and everything that we do is about supporting each other, and so having you here, 83 of you I think it was, just really heartens us to know that you're all out there, we're still all here, and we're all pushing together to make sure that we end this term on a high, and the students have made good progress and have really got to grips with everything they're doing. So thank you very much for your time. We'll let you go to your evening, and we wish you a very happy week, and we look forward to touching base with you again, perhaps before the summer break up, so that we can have a look ahead to September. So thank you, and we'll let you sign off.